Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Better Project Outcomes Through Data Insight. Today's webinar is brought to you by Mastt and Infrastructure Magazine. My name is Jessica Dickers, and I'm the editor of Infrastructure Magazine. I'll be your host for today's webinar, and I'm very excited to spend the next 45 minutes exploring this critical topic with you. But first, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we're all meeting today. So for me here in Melbourne, that is the Wurundjeri people. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where all of our Australian delegates are located today, and pay my respects to elders past, present and future. Now, there are huge amounts of data involved in managing large infrastructure projects in 2022. But while most operations are digitised, many project teams are still using spreadsheets to manage data manually. This can be time-consuming, increase the risk of errors, and doesn't offer any value-add opportunities. But today's webinar will explore how project teams can capitalise on their data for program insights and predictive decision-making capabilities. Our speakers today are Doug Vincent, Co-Founder of Mastt, and Dan Atkins, Section Leader, Defence Infrastructure and Delivery Solutions, ANZ, at Jacobs. After a decade working as a project manager on government infrastructure projects, Doug saw that the capital works industry lacked software custom-made for the task. So he decided to create it. 2 years later, the Mastt CEO is proud that the software is used to deliver $25 billion of Australian infrastructure programs. And Dan is a motivated project management professional with more than 20 years experience in government procurement, commercial construction and delivery of complex infrastructure portfolios. Mastt recently raised $9.5 million in Series A funding to continue unlocking data and providing real-time reporting and insights to some of the country's largest project owners. Jacobs teamed up with Mastt on a project for the Department of Defence that required synthesising $2 billion of historic program information that was collected over 5 years, while also needing the ability to extract information from different systems. Now, you hear a bit more about this project case study later today, as Doug and Dan talk about how an entire team moved from spreadsheets into a digital program and portfolio control system, creating a competitive advantage. Now, before I hand it over to Doug and Dan, I want to let our delegates know that today's session is an interactive one. If you have any questions for our speakers while they are presenting, please type your question into the Q&A box that is located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So we will collect all of these questions, and once Doug and Dan have finished the presentation, we'll bring them both back on screen for a short Q&A session. But now, please join me in welcoming Doug and Dan to get started with today's presentation.
Thank you, Jessica. Thanks for that lovely introduction. Now, am I okay to share my screen, Jessica, and take over?
Yep, all good now.
Fantastic. There we go. Hey, Dan, you've made it.
I have. Thanks, Doug, and thanks for the wonderful introduction, Jessica.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. And we're super pumped to be bringing you this webinar today. Today's topic is better project outcomes through data insights. And it's certainly something that Dan and I are very passionate about, working on large multi-billion-dollar programs of work. And just to quickly reintroduce Dan. So Dan obviously works for Jacobs. And why is Jacobs like a key customer of Mastt? Well, that's because they are a global leader in program management and very much at the forefront of innovation and change, working in a multitude of different sectors in Australia and overseas. So Mastt is honoured to have Jacobs as a customer, and I'm super excited to have Dan here joining us today on this webinar. Anything else you want to add, Dan, just in relation to yourself and Jacobs before we crack into it and the case study?
Oh, Doug, I think you've pretty much summed it up enough.
Yeah, gave you a good wrap.
People want to see more about Mastt than Jacobs, so I'll hand it back over to you.
No worries. So we'll get straight into it. And as introduced by Jessica, the genesis of Mastt is very much intertwined with my own personal story. So when I graduated from university, I studied engineering, and in engineering, you use some software to design the bridge or design a building. And then when I went into the client side project management, area of the construction industry, I just couldn't believe that all of these asset owners were running large capital works projects and programs using spreadsheets. And I'm talking, these are huge projects building, hospitals or naval wharves or defense bases. And there were sometimes, hundreds or thousands of spreadsheets in time series on these projects. So it was just no wonder to me that there was all these cost blowouts and time overruns that were happening in the industry. And it was not just in one sector, this was in all sectors. So I was fortunate enough to be working for a large consulting firm like Jacobs, and I saw this problem in government. I saw this problem in education, property developers. It was truly everywhere. And so I went along with that, and that's all I knew as a young greenhorn coming up in the industry. And I went headfirst into it and, started to pull my hair out, literally pull my hair out with spreadsheets, just building a spreadsheet to, keep track of all of my work. And as I started to uncover more about the reporting on all of these projects and programs, I realized that everyone was doing it in the same way. That have their cost spreadsheets, many tabs all along the bottom. We know what they look like. And then you'd have your Gantt charts in Microsoft Project or even Primavera. And again, you'd have, a bunch of those. And then, of course, the wonderful risk register. And you'd have this on all of your projects. It doesn't matter if you've got one project or 40, you're going to have, a risk register or a cost tracker or a schedule tool on all of those projects in a program. And then every month I was copying and pasting, right-click copy, right-click paste, all of that data into a multitude of reports, whether they were one-page project status sheets or program reports, or even, the monthly project control group report, or just generally the monthly report. And this was just how it was every month, these kind of high volume, super burdensome tasks that I was doing. And I got really good at it. But after a while, as you start to report upwards into a program, which was the last role I had, I realized what that actually created upstream. And so when I had finished my work as a project manager, I would then send up my reports into the program. And essentially that creates a fork in the data. So I would continue on with my project, updating my spreadsheets in my swim lane, but the data that I had reported upstream, took another life. And that was then being aggregated again and again into a program level report, which eventually makes its way up to the portfolio manager. And by the time it gets to the portfolio manager, on average, in our customers anyway, it's between 60 and 90 days late. So that's very, very difficult for that portfolio manager to make a fast decision and even the right decision when they're relying on data that is up to 3 months old. Project's already moved on. It's very hard to stop risks and issues when that information is late. And so after doing that for about 8 years, I decided, I've had enough of this. And we created Mastt, because my job had just become this crazy pain of administration. And I thought, this is, enough is enough. And so as we recap some of these problem statements, and Dan, I might get you to throw your thoughts in here too. At the project level, we're using a bunch of spreadsheets, converting that information into reports. And then as we get up to the program level, which is Dan's role in the case study that we'll get to in a minute, we're manually aggregating data. And this is a very, very tough process. And it's also quite a bad look to the client, which was what we had identified with this program with Jacobs. And I might throw to Dan just for a comment there on the problem that creates upstream.
Yeah, I think, thanks, Doug. There's, on your previous slide, you talked about, you showed that there was, 4 weeks of a delivery in terms of just one single spreadsheet reporting on one particular project. When you've got a program and you've got projects of 20 to 40 projects like what we do under the industry partner program, that's 40 spreadsheets. It's probably about 80 or 90 spreadsheets all coming in at a certain point. And so minimizing the risk of inaccurate data reporting on scheduling or time or cost, even risks, and having that data being reported 4 weeks after the event, it wasn't good enough for us. So we wanted to develop with Mastt a system that would be reporting for our program pretty much on time and at the day of something was actually going to happen, or was an issue in terms of delay or over cost. So we've got a program of 40 projects, and now we're reporting on day one, and we can see the effect of that reporting almost instantly on that day, or even 24 hours later, as opposed to 4 weeks later.
Right, and then using all of that real-time information to generate a real-time report for that portfolio manager. And we'll show you the system in a moment and how that works. And so at Mastt, it is our mission, to digitize the construction industry. And we feel like this is a worthy mission, as does Jacobs and our customers, because the construction industry is totally a dinosaur, and we spend, very, very low amount of money compared to other sectors on, digital technologies. And so even right now, the world economy grows at roughly 3%, but the productivity growth in construction is very laggard at 1%. And we are literally pretty close to fishing on the digitization index. So, major sad face here from me as a person very passionate about the construction industry. But how do we rethink that? So with Jacobs, to make this real-time software, we rethought all of these project, program, and portfolio actions from the bottom up. And the way that we do that at Mastt is a combination of, engineering skill, design, because people do care about the design of software these days. We've got all these great apps in our personal life, and then we come to work and we're using, it's crazy spreadsheets. So design, and then also we are, totally emphatic on customer engagement. And we are in weekly battle rhythm meetings with Jacobs on this industry partner program, because technology has become a core part of the service that they deliver to their client. And so now out of spreadsheets, how do we actually, to make those better, faster insights, how do we effectively gather and store that information so that we can actually generate those insights and report? And this is just very briefly how we do it in a very simple way here at Mastt. And so essentially with Mastt, you are replacing all of those spreadsheets. All of those cost trackers are gone. All of those Gantt charts are no longer necessary. And you certainly don't need the spreadsheet risk registers anymore, because we have all of that through our platform that I'll show you, captured into clean, labeled correctly data environments. And bringing all that information, we use Microsoft Azure Cloud, but there's a range of other cloud providers that you can use, and a whole host of databases. But we bring all of that information together so that we have access to that information for learning and reporting on all of the project controls and key reporting metrics in a single system. And this is how we are able to bring that information together in Mastt to enable that real-time reporting that Jacobs needs for their client. And so what we've been able to achieve is this level of automation and level of data aggregation that has not previously been achieved in the industry. And of course, to Dan's point, prevention through using a software, all of those errors that can occur when you're using a spreadsheet. And so I might just, before we jump into a quick demo, and I'll be talking to the case study in the demo. It's not customer data in the demonstration, but it is generic information. But I thought, Dan, you could introduce the program and the case study.
Yeah, sure. The industry partner program is a defence infrastructure program facilitated out of the Capital Facilities Infrastructure of Defence. So it comprises of probably 30 to 40 infrastructure projects of various capex ranges, anywhere between 5 million to 500, 600, 700 million. CapEx is around about 4 billion there, as it says. It's probably a little bit pushing more, about close to 5. It's a 5-year program. For Jacobs, that's a good locked-in program that it provides us with an initial year to sort of get our feet on the ground, start implementing systems like Mastt to be able to drive a program that can report accurately and efficiently. It's a nationally driven program, so Australia-wide. We've probably got over 100 project managers working on it. Jacobs has 3 components, which is a PMO that works with the client, co-located in Canberra. We've got a national program of delivery, which is the project management side of things, and also design as well. So we can provide a turnkey solution for defence under this program. Yeah, it's been a good program that we're probably into our 9th, or we actually hit the 12-month mark a couple of weeks ago actually. So it's been a good program for Jacobs, collaboratively working with Mastt, delivering a digital solution for accurately reporting. A program, as I said before, its aim is to accurately report the cost and spend targets of each project for defence, but also picking up issues and risks as they occur, and being able to be preventative actions in place before they actually roll out and become a bigger issue. That's the benefits of Mastt. We can put things into the Mastt system and be able to have a programmatic view of it and see, Doug will probably show a little bit later, risk bubbles and how the finance of the program is tracking along as a whole. So that's pretty much it, Doug, I'd say.
Yeah, and that's a really good segue into what the system actually looks like. It's always nice to see the software. So let me click over, and Dan, maybe you and I can both talk to different parts of the system. Now, this is just a demo environment because we can't show you defence data, which is classified, but you can see in here that I've got 6 projects. So in Jacob's case study, they have over 40 on the screen, and we roll all of that information up into programs and a portfolio. And I might jump into this project A and show you what that looks like on the project dashboards, which was, Dan, do you remember this was a PowerPoint slide? This used to be a PowerPoint slide. And people would paste in the bottom of it a spreadsheet. I mean, you use those a lot more than I used to, but do you want to talk to the pain of that as I kind of scroll through some of what we see here? Of
the PowerPoint or the spreadsheet? Yeah. Reporting monthly was quite a difficult challenge in that it'd probably take a couple of days to generate a monthly report, but and that comprised of working in a spreadsheet that was embedded inside a PowerPoint, and moving to this online database. You can essentially, with the click of a button, produce that report in itself and as a dashboard itself. So I think something, you've just got it there, Doug. Yeah. Yep, there it is. Pressing something like a button and being able to generate that at your tip of your fingers is quite valuable. And to be able to do it live and not have to wait for 3 or 4 weeks for that data to be validated and go through the system is so important. That's right. And so if all of this real-time dashboard information that you can see here is fed from our modules. So where you're managing your finances, you'll be in your cost module. Oh, let me go back to that. And so this is the spreadsheet killer for all of those different tabs that you'd be using to manage the budgets, the contracts, the payment claims, the cash flow. And it was always very difficult for me as a program manager to ascertain, the build-up of that money, because when you would double-click on a cell in a spreadsheet, you would get, B1 plus half of B5 plus a quarter of B6, and it was really difficult to know exactly what the project manager has done to come up with that value. So we wanted to make it really easy for anyone to come in here and just drill down and unravel rows. And this gives Dan the transparency and the visibility on any project in the program, so he can drill in and see exactly what the spend is. And then the project managers are using this to generate all of their reporting. And so rather than mess around with producing a PDF directly out of Excel, they can generate all of that straight out of Mastt and put that straight into the back of their PCG reports. That's the monthly report that gets provided to Defence on a particular project. So as people would know, good project managers develop monthly reports using pie charts and whatever else. With Mastt, you can, as a click of a button, you can drop something straight into your report.
For all those key appendices, from budgets through to claims and through to cash flow, even generation of payment certificates and statements, we do directly out of Mastt. So that's killing all of the financial spreadsheets, and then we also kill the risk registers. And so you can see here visualization of those risks at the top, which is the last step of the ISO risk management framework. It's all about communicating the risk, and it's very easy for us to see what the risk is, what the cause is, what those consequences and mitigations are, and visualize that information on one screen so that the Jacobs program and portfolio managers can see exactly what's going on at any time. And then we take, that's a little bit of project land. Now we take all of that information and we roll it up into programs and up into a portfolio. So I'm going to jump here into maybe this program, and I'll show you, Dan, that view of all the projects stacked together with that deep dive visibility into the finances. Maybe if we can just talk to how your guys are using this at the moment, Dan.
This is from the program side of things?
Program side, yeah. This has got all the projects on it, all the finances in one spot.
Yeah, I think so. The key for us here is to accurately look at what our forecasted spend and budgets are, what we're saying we're going to achieve in one certain month, and how we're tracking to achieving that. And then what we can do is drill down into each project and have a look at where there is a shortfall in that target and interrogate that data, and get on the front foot and talk to the project managers and really get down to the bottom as to why that's underachieving, or maybe there's a lost invoice or something like that, which is usually unlikely because, as Doug pointed out before, there is a really cool function that Mastt has implemented, and that is where we can raise a progress claim and exchange the approval of that progress claim within Mastt itself. So eliminating that email back and forth and an invoice or a progress claim getting lost in your emails. So doing that inside Mastt adds the efficiency so that we can quickly get onto things like, as I said before, having a look at where a project might be falling behind in terms of its forecasted spend.
Now I'll just jump up and I'll show the client's view. So we have a portfolio view specifically for the client, which the client can access anytime on their local machine or their iPad if they want to see what's going on across the entire portfolio of works. And it's pretty similar stuff, what stage are all the projects at, percentage of budget, percentage of progress, all of the health, so that they can see in real time which projects are going into red health for those fairly ubiquitous health indicators from scope through to cash flow, all of the sponsors, how much money those sponsors are spending, vendors for identification of vendor risk, and more spending, more cash flow, more risks, so they can actually ascertain what the risk profile is of the portfolio against their risk management framework. And then for some of the reporting that this customer has to do, we can present all of this data because we have this common data environment set up to generate any insight that we need. And one way to present those insights is on maps. And so we can produce a report here on a federal electorate in real time that our clients can get on the phone and talk to the minister and say, this is how much money I'm spending in your electorate. And this is all reportable out of Mastt as well. So the client, you can talk to that, Dan, how the client gets these dashboard reports from Mastt.
Yeah, the client gets the dashboard report every month, but just on this topic here that you've got, Doug, that's another really cool function where, as we know, Defence get hit with a lot of ministerials and a lot of questions from state government and their electorals about how many local contractors are working on particular defence projects within that region. And we can easily go into that region or pull up that electorate and have a look at what projects being delivered through that electorate. And then we can also drill down even further as to what type of subcontract arrangements are put in there, what type of subcontract has been delivered, the average Joe Blow window framer, how many projects is that company working on, right down to the granularity of that data that we can get is really excellent. And it's that's at your fingertips. You can get that out straight away without having to run around for 4 days trying to pull that information out of the project managers.
That's right. So now I'm going to cut back away from the demo, and maybe Dan, if we can just recap some of the benefits from Project Up.
The projects themselves, I think being able to use the Mastt system to record financial information, which is Defence's money or Commonwealth's money, being able to insert that into a system and let the data spin around and be interrogated, not just only from the project manager, from the program managers as well. The scheduling, being able to schedule your forecasted delivery, your milestones, your costs. The benefits are, we're all talking about efficiencies and how we efficiently deliver something. There has another aspect to it as well, and that's growth. So being able to efficiently deliver projects provides the growth in the program. And then what I mean by that is it gives the directorate itself, the Defence Directorate, which we're delivering this sole program for, the confidence that they can take on more work and deliver more work. So it has huge benefits about the efficiencies and then driving the growth as well.
Cool, thanks, Dan. Now, I'm going to skip forward a little bit here because what we've seen so far is all about capturing data, saving time at the project level, and then reporting that information up in real time. But there is a lot more that we can do with that data. And I like to think of it in this analogy of like using Lego. So we've kind of picked up all the pieces that were in the spreadsheets and we've kind of put them neatly, into a system. And with that data, really neatly arranged in our common data environment, we can present that data in any way that we need upstream for Dan or for the client, whether it be maps or reports, anything at all. But when you look at all of this information, in time series, there is a whole lot of other insights and benchmarking that's possible when you look at this information over time. And so we can actually start to think about predicting trends and anomalies in the data. And this is where we're up to now with Dan and the team. So we've got a year's worth of data in Mastt, and we have enough information that we can start to look at what are those insights in the data telling us that we can feed back into future program delivery. And so what sort of things can we use this data for? I've got a couple of examples here, and I'm going to go through one in a minute and how we actually do that. But we can use the data for doing things like power search, where we have character recognition across our entire database, and we can pick information out in an instant and present that to Dan and the team. We can do anomaly detection. So when we identify that maybe there's a pattern of data that is not normal, we can bring that to the fore and report on that so that someone can say, that is actually a problem. Why is that happening? And then the last example, my favorite, is we can run scenarios on the data, and we can actually tell Dan what might happen in this scenario if this risk is realized or if this milestone is delayed. What's the impact of that on the rest of the program? And so I'm going to take a deeper look into the anomaly detection example 2, and I'll show you how we do that and how it actually looks, because this is really innovative stuff that I haven't seen anyone else doing. And to cook this cake, you do need a lot of data, and you need the data in a clean environment. And so what I mean by that is, you can't just have all these crazy spreadsheets and do this. You need to have it in a database so that you can bring it all together. And you need a DOM. So DOM is our data scientist. So you need one of them. Find those creatures. They are out there in the wild. They're expensive and they are very, very smart. And when you have both of those things, you can start to do some of this machine learning and artificial intelligence work that allows us to identify these trends and insights. And so how it's done in this circumstance, and I'll talk to this in a schedule perspective, is It takes all of that past data and it identifies patterns, trends, and relationships in the information. And then it makes predictions, based on those trends. And so this is where you need the DOM, you need the clean data environment. And there is a really simple way of how I can explain machine learning to you, which just gives a bit of context to the next slide that's going to come. And so I like to use this example of a Simpsons face. So it's really good. It's way better than doing Simpsons face these days. But imagine you've got a learning machine and you give it all these pixels, random pixels, and then you have an answer machine, which you give the Simpsons face. And so what the learner does is it just randomly regenerates the pixels, sends it to the answer machine, and it says, does this look like a Simpsons face? Yes or no? And it says, yes or no, yes or no. And it does that millions of times a second. And this is actually how it looks when it's doing it in real time. So slowly, slowly, slowly over the course of, multiple iterations on, re-randomizing all of these pixels, you'll see it'll start to get towards a Simpsons face. And so this is the same approach that we take with all of the data in Dan's program. And eventually you get the Simpsons face. And this stuff has actually gotten really good. And I don't know if you guys have seen like the Tom Cruise deep fake videos going around, but this is similar type of stuff that people are using to do those types of videos. And they look almost indistinguishable from reality. So that's how good people have got at training these different machines. And so for Jacobs, we are using this now specifically on the schedule. So we've got the life cycle of all of the projects, and those projects go through certain stages, gates, and milestones in accordance with Jacobs program governance. And so all of these milestones have got key dates, baseline dates, plan dates, and actual dates that we can use. And so because all this information is standardized, it's captured across the program and the organization, we can benchmark that information. And so you could think about it as a lot of clustering of data points on a page. And then as you start to generate a picture of what that data looks like, you get a view of the different swim lanes for each data point. And then you have, an average, and some of these data points will be outside of the normal standard deviation with the rest of the grouping of information. And so how does this actually look like in another demo? So I'm just going to crack over to it. Again, this is not customer information, but this is just a demonstration of the tool. And this is an R&D project, by the way. So this is something that we're working on with Jacobs. And so what you can see here is I've got a bunch of anomalies that the system has raised and flagged in the data on the bottom half. And then the top half is our portfolio anomaly detector, which is an algorithm that picks up not only schedule data, but schedule risk and financial information. And over time, you can see that there are these data points that pop outside of the swim lane that we know to be the rhythm of a successful project. So using all this historical data, the swim lane is what a successful project should look like. And so when a project steps outside that range, we raise that as an anomaly for Dan. And then Dan can pick it up and go, I wonder what that is. Could be something as simple as no one has mitigated this risk in 30 days. Jump in, see why that is. So this is the type of predictive analysis and insight that all of this data is affording us on this program of works. So it's really, really cool stuff. Very, very innovative, and it's going to be giving Jacob this forward-looking view of how their program can look. Anything you want to add on to that, Dan?
I think just on your previous slide where you had the schedule, I noticed that was an ongoing development that we've had over the last 12 months. It's important that we push this point about Mastt not being an off-the-shelf product that you just get and the customer services walked away. What we've worked together with you and the wider team of Mastt is ongoing developments of the Mastt system for our program, and it has been that case, and it's a month-to-month ongoing growth of the program itself. But Mastt has been able to grow that for us through some really cool innovations in how we report the program to our client. And our client in return has also been able to request the way that they see the information and what information that they want to see, and the request of that being able for Mastt to be able to deliver that has been excellent. So I think that's probably something that just to push through there a little bit to our people listening onto this webinar is that Mastt is not just a product that you buy off the shelf and there you go and you get a 12-month warranty and hope that nothing happens after 12 months and 3 days. We've been working with Mastt and been able to develop our product that we deliver for defence in collaboration with Mastt. So it's been good. And this is an example, this program look view of what we've been able to identify has been a really cool reporting item.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dan. And the only thing I might add to that is, Jacobs were early on big on the agile methodology of working rather than the static waterfall approach. And so what we've been able to do with you and the client who are open to that agile methodology is iterate month to month rather than procure these big bang solutions and then try to implement it. So innovation is a continuous improvement initiative, and so we at Mastt kind of work in that way, as does Jacobs, and that's kind of the benefits. See benefits month to month. Cool. Jessica, I might throw over to you for some questions.
Great. Thanks so much, Doug and Dan, for your fantastic presentation. Some really interesting information there. So we're now going to go into the Q&A section of today's webinar. For all our delegates, if you haven't yet submitted your question for our speakers, you still have a bit of time to do so. You can do that by typing your question into the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We'll get started with our first question that has come through though. And they ask, how much of a learning curve is involved for a project team when switching to a new system like this? Doug, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, sure. And that's a good question, because I mean, the fear is that the system is going to have a big learning curve and it's going to take you, months and months to get people to adopt it. The good thing with Mastt is we've designed and developed this system so that you can get started, really quickly. And so most people only need a very small amount of training and they can get up and running on the system either by themselves, but they're up and running, within a day. And this is akin to the software that you use in your personal life. So no one has taught you and done a training session on how to use Uber or Uber Eats, for example. You just know how to use them through the intuitiveness of the app. And that's the way that we've designed Mastt as well, so that you can get up and running. It's not a crazy complicated system to use. And that way you get time to value and relief from your spreadsheet problems very, very fast.
Yeah, great. Dan, did you want to add some comments for this question as well?
I think, yeah, 100%. We've got 60 project managers and over 100 people working on the program using Mastt. I think people would find it harder to understand how to upgrade their phone from the Samsung S20 to S21 than on how to use Mastt. Honestly, Mastt is so simple to use. Using your apps on your phone is probably a lot harder.
Great, thanks so much, Dan.
I'll help you upgrade your phone after, Dan.
Once you've learnt the new system, where does it save the project team the most time? In what area? Doug, I'll go to you first as well.
So, and that's specifically at the project level. Does that say project team, that question?
Yeah, where does it save the project team the most time?
Sure. So in a project, this is where I used to pull my hair out, was certainly doing all of the administration and reporting. And that is a monthly thing. So this is every month you're having to do all of this administration, do all of this reporting, and then aggregate that information up into a broader report. And so rather than have all of these hours consumed in updating and combining and copying and pasting information from spreadsheets, all of that is automated in Mastt. And so you don't have this big duplication of effort and reproduction of all this information. And so the big time saving is in the aggregation of that information and the real-time automated reporting, so that you don't have to do it as a human. The computer will do it for you.
Great, thanks for that. I'll go to Dan for our next question. Has the owner defence seen any difference from this software being used, I guess, or is it purely on the back end? Do you want to provide some comments for this?
Yeah, I think with the system itself driving the program, it definitely finds the accuracy in the data, but also being very, very responsive very quickly as well. So we've been able to predict what we're going to spend as a program from 1 month to the next, and the accuracy is greater than 95%. So I think what that means is that the directorate itself has the confidence on what they're reporting upwards is true, and not have to go back and validate data and get things, and is that right or is that wrong? Took us a couple of months initially to get past the whole spreadsheet thing over to this is the system, but the accuracy of what we've been able to report is excellent.
Great. I'll go to our next question that's come through. It's a bit of a two-parter. How was the project data initially inputted into the system? And how do you maintain and ensure the real-time data quality along, as the project progresses? Doug, I'll go to you for this one.
So I think the first part of that question is about getting the data in. And so we're no stranger at Mastt to being handed over, boxes of spreadsheets, so to speak. And so we have, scripts and some artificial intelligence internally that we use to upload all of that information. And so we were able to do that for Dan on what was historically about 10 years worth of data and about 40 or 50 projects worth of financial schedule and risk information. We were able to do that in 4 weeks through these automations. And then once the data is in, it's just a matter of making sure that people are using it. And so because Mastt was designed from the perspective of a project manager, which was the role that I used to do, rather than add that data into a spreadsheet or update a risk or update a cost item in a spreadsheet, they're actually now doing that in Mastt. And so through their own workflow, the system is intertwined with that. And so that they are using the system daily in those project administration, assistant PM roles. And if they're not, for whatever reason, that is valuable information that those responsible for that project and the governance above need to know. And so bringing that information upstream on how the users are actually using the app is also valuable for people like Dan, who are responsible for program governance and control of all of the staff. And so for most people, to answer that question, it is a daily use system that does replace their spreadsheets.
Great. I'll stick with you, Doug, for the next question that's come through from our delegate, Raylene. They ask, do you need to populate the risks from scratch for every project, or is there a function to copy a baseline risk register from another project to adapt it and save time?
Yep. So exactly like I was just talking to, where we can ingest those, that spreadsheet information. All you have to do is hand over your spreadsheet to Mastt, and we'll hand back the system, with a bow tie on it, so you're ready to go. And we're nearly at the point now where we've got a library of our own risks across the industry, and so you will never need to produce a risk register. You can just go, I'm starting a new project. It's a hospital in this state. Produce me a risk register, and it will produce one for you automatically, so that you don't have to do the risk identification and mitigation process yourself. So that's kind of where it's at the moment.
Fantastic, thanks for that. I think we have time for one more question. So I'll go to Dan first. Are there any particular job roles that benefit more than others with the switch from Excel spreadsheets? For instance, is it the program director, is it the project manager or the owner that I guess benefits the most?
Jessica, I think they all benefit, to be honest. Going back to Raylene's question and also Doug's answering one of the previous questions about, as a project manager, think of a project manager and you're managing 1 or 2 projects. You go into Microsoft Explorer, find the folder that you're working out of, find the subfolder that you're working out to find your risk register, add that update the risk register, go out of that folder, go to the next folder, which is called the finance folder, update your financials. With Mastt, you go open your web browser and probably got a shortcut to your project anyway. Hit the tab and away you go, and you start updating the data. It's as simple as that. The efficiencies that you find as a project manager is probably hours, not minutes, it's hours. So with a project manager being able to update all that information and have more time to address risks and issues on a project, which is hugely important, is hugely beneficial. But then from a program director level as well, Doug showed you on the demonstration, there's anomalies that you can see, and you can easily just tap into that and address that with the project manager, as opposed to waiting for something to come through in a month's time and go, oh, what's going on there? So from a program perspective, I can go in any day, any time, and have a look at how the program is running and have a look at some of the risks that might impact the program at the next reporting level, or some of the issues that might be impacting some of our spend targets and things like that. So the answer to your question, there's no particular role that this benefits. It's all roles. And I can vouch for that as a project manager and as a program manager. Our project managers have more time to do more projects because they've got a system that allows them to efficiently do their work.
Fantastic. Doug, did you have any comments on this question and anything else to sort of wrap up today?
No, I mean, just I just want to give a thank you to Dan for joining us on this webinar. It's always great to have a customer so that people can hear it from, the horse's mouth rather than from me. So I just wanted to say thanks to Dan and certainly thanks to Infrastructure Magazine for having us. And if anyone did want to know more about Mastt, you can certainly reach out to me at doug@mastt.com.au, and certainly our website, mastt.com. And I'm always down to have a conversation about making the industry better and more productive through technology. So I welcome anyone to kind of reach out to me.
Great, thanks so much. So in the interest of time, we will wrap up the questions there. But as I said, thank you to both of our speakers, Doug, Vincent and Dan Atkins. We really appreciate all your time today and your expertise. A huge thank you to all of our delegates who tuned in today. We hope you got a lot of value from the presentation and the case study. If you did submit a question today that we weren't able to get to, we'll be sharing these with both of our speakers, and they can respond to you via email after the webinar. Finally, thank you to Mastt for bringing us this informative webinar today. We look forward to seeing you at another virtual event soon.